Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 13.1.2 has been out for a few days, and I've been running it on multiple devices, and I was running it on my main device until the beta came out. If you haven't seen that, I did a follow-up on the iPhone 11 Pro Max on iOS 13.2 Beta 1, but I have three different devices here running iOS 13.1.2, and I'm going to talk about how it's been for me, how it's been for you based off the YouTube community poll, and then we'll take a look at some of your comments toward the end of the video. If you'd like to jump to a specific point in the video, check out the time codes listed in the description below. Now in my hand, I have an iPhone 8 Plus, as you can see here, and then on the right, I have an iPhone 11 in that new green color. And then on the left, I have an iPhone 7, and this is a jet black iPhone 7. So some of you are going to say, no, it's an iPhone 8. No, this is a jet black iPhone 7. It's a special edition that's very glossy. It looks like glass, but it's not. It's aluminum in a special coating. They only made a handful of those, or sometimes you can find them refurbished. Now, as far as the overall experience, unsurprisingly to many of you, I didn't really have any issues with this particular update prior to installing the betas. So on my main phone, I had no issues. And in fact, I asked a bunch of family members, have you had any issues on 13.1.2? And only one of them had a complaint. So the ones that were running the newer phones, such as the iPhone 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, or 11, they had no issues. And they wouldn't notice battery life problems because the newer phones have much better battery life. And in turn, even if it was bad, they would think it's still better than what they came from, a previous device. However, the one family member that did have an issue was on the iPhone 7, and they were saying battery life was pretty bad. So if we take a look at the battery life on the iPhone 7, you'll see the capacity is at 87% on this phone. This is the lowest capacity of any phone in my house, actually. And as you can see, it's still under peak performance capability. But if we take a look at the battery life, it had 2 hours and 10 minutes of screen on time, 3 minutes of screen off time. And if we look at these different days, as you can see, it's not heavily used, but 2 hours and 6 minutes with 50% battery life left is pretty bad. So this is really bad. And I'm actually hearing that from you on older devices. So if you have an older device, many of you have said that battery life is terrible with iOS 13.1.2. And it makes a lot of sense if you're on those older devices. Now, quite a few of you had said you were having stuttering issues when you went into the settings or anything like that, and it tends to be on the older phones. Even though iOS 13 in general seems to perform better than iOS 12, some people were having scrolling stutter issues, frame rate drops, and things like that. Other people were having apps crash, so maybe you went into music and it would just crash. I've heard of that over and over. Even Apple apps seem to be crashing for some. So I don't know if some of those people need to do a clean install because the actual results are very mixed depending on who you ask. So sometimes people are saying it's working fine. Other times people are saying it's terrible. Others are saying that email is still an issue. And for me, it has not been an issue in the new beta. They seemingly fixed it in the beta, but not so much with this public release. So hopefully they get that version out quick. And there are two more issues that I kept seeing over and over and over, and that is with widgets. So I saw people with widgets have problems with them crashing or just locking up, moving fast, and it would just reboot the screen or respring the whole device. I haven't been able to duplicate that, but I've seen that enough that I know it's an issue. And then finally, people are still complaining about CarPlay, and rightfully so. For some reason, with different cars, it's just not working well. So unfortunately, people are still having that issue. I really think iOS 13.1.2 is optimized more so for the newer devices, and even though the old ones seem to work well for the most part, I think the newer devices, you're not going to see any performance issues because the device overall is so fast. So because of that, you really shouldn't see many issues. Now let's take a look at the YouTube community poll. Now, I posted the poll only about a day and a half ago, and it's had tremendous response, so I really appreciate that. I'm so grateful that a lot of you participate in this, and then we can see how many people have problems with it or don't. It's a great way to know what's going on over time. So as you can see, 14K votes, so 14,000 of you voted, so I really appreciate that. And you'll see 56% of you said it was great, so over half of you seem to have no issues whatsoever or think that it's more than acceptable. 5% of you say it's terrible, 23% of you are having bugs for the most part. So really 28% of you may be having bugs or having a bad experience. 6% of you are using the 13.2 beta, which makes sense. Not as many of you seem to be excited about that beta. And then 9% of you are using iOS 12.4.2 or older, so older versions of iOS 12. Now, there were 411 comments. I've read all of them except for maybe that have been new within the past 10 minutes or so. And that is a lot of comments, and that's where I get all this data from. So the people that are having issues with battery, that's the number one complaint I see. So let's go through a handful of these. Obviously, I can't read 400 of them. They'll take a while, but we'll go through quite a few. So you'll see here, this one says battery life on iPhone SE is very bad. But then right above it, someone said haven't had as many problems as iOS 13. So it seems to be very mixed back and forth. iPhone 10 works awesome as usual. Battery life seems a little better. And then it's been great so far on my Mini 4 besides the one YouTube glitch when switching from portrait mode back to landscape quickly. I've had that glitch since iOS 12. I really think that's the YouTube app. The YouTube app seems to be worse than it normally is under iOS 13. So I think they really just need to update that app and then we'll all be much happier. I'm using iOS 13.1.2 on my XS Max. After updating, audio sharing issues and battery drainage is fixed for me. Didn't experience any bugs yet. Thank you for keeping everyone updated with your videos. Glad you appreciate it. My iPhone 7 has been having crash issues with freezing, from text messages to trying to make a call. And that's where I was saying I'm seeing this with older devices more. Battery life is great on my 11 Pro Max, iPhone XS Max, and iPad Pro 2018-inch. Can't wait for the next software release with more fixes. Love your content, Aaron. It's very detailed. Other YouTubers rush their videos. All right, thank you very much. I'm still on iOS 12 with my XS Max because iOS 13 has no 3D touch. Yes, it does. It actually does have all the same features, and it's even pressure sensitive. So here's iOS 13. If I push the side there, you'll see it has 3D touch. So those features are still there. It may respond a little bit differently on the home screen, but it's still faster than devices without 3D touch. So it definitely still has it. 7 Plus here, battery is a nightmare. So you'll see on the iPhone 7, I don't know what it is. Hopefully they fix that soon. iPhone XR, and it's been a lovely experience for a first-time user. It's great to hear. I'm using an iPhone 8 Plus and iOS 13.1.2, and it's been terrific. Everything, especially apps, open and closes more smoothly. The phone just seems faster. My Siri has not been responding when I say, hey, and then that word. For me to fix the problem is to reboot the phone. So far, it's happened 4 times. I haven't really noticed that, but I don't probably use it that often either, so I'm curious if any more of you are having that issue. Great on iPhone XS, better battery life, and less buggy than previous versions of iOS 13. Camera on my XS Max flashes black before it's released, and after 3D pressing on mail, it does not show one new message. Always is no unread messages. I've actually seen that now that you mention it. It's kind of an odd bug, but again, the phone is functioning, so probably Apple's going to get to it a little bit later. There is no announce messages on iPhone 6s. Can anybody tell me why? I'm on 13.2. That's a bug. Plug in the headphones and it will probably work. Try it a couple times, unpair them. That's really what got it to work for me. Haven't had a problem on my iPhone 11. Everything works extremely well. Same for my XR. Again, where I was saying it's better, it seems like, with the newer devices. A couple of lockups and app crashes. It seems to have settled down and is now great. So maybe give it a few days. I know a lot of people are really concerned about battery life after the first day or so. It seems terrible, but give it 1 to 2 days and then it really gets better usually because it's doing a lot of background activity. So if you just leave it plugged in at night, it will do all of that activity if it's on Wi-Fi, and it should be better in the morning. Sharing photos from Photos to WhatsApp still crashes sometimes. WhatsApp needs to update their app. I've been hearing a lot of issues with WhatsApp. I don't really know anyone personally since it's not used heavily in the US, but I know a lot of people worldwide use it. iPhone 11 Pro Max all seems well except for app links don't always open up the app. Instead, they open the App Store. CarPlay no longer works for me when I press the button. I received the following. I'm having trouble with the connection, but when I initiate Siri with the word hey in front of it, it works. 8 Plus, not so good battery life, 89% battery health. Rearranging apps is a nightmare on iPhone, but works okay on iPad. About a week after updating to iOS 13.1.2, I had an issue and was not able to send a text. Also, I would lose signal in an area that normally has great signal. Where in the App Store, the app update listing of app... Okay, so you want to know where the app updates are. If you 3D press or long press on the App Store, go to updates. That's the fastest way to do it. You can also go in the App Store, tap on your name that shows up in the upper right, and that's where they're kept. No one wants to talk about the serious issue with lens flare on the iPhone Pro. I really hope it's fixable through software. I don't have any lens flare issues. In sunlight, lens flare can be pretty normal though, unless you have some sort of adapter. Lens flare is normal in bright sunlight though, so I get it on all the different phones that I've ever used. Performance laggy and choppy on my SE. I had to downgrade to iOS 12. You won't be able to do that much longer though, so if you want to do that, you might want to do that quickly. We'll read a couple more. Responsiveness is generally pretty good on my iPhone XS here. All in all, love this update. There are still quite a few bugs with the voiceover screen reader for the visually impaired. I sincerely hope iOS 13.2 fixes a lot of the problems using voiceover. It's great to hear someone's using it. Mail still not updating. I am using Outlook instead. Actually, I used Spark or Outlook during the betas because the mail was so bad. As far as I'm concerned, iOS 13.1.1 and 13.1.2 have been the real stars of the show. I went from 3 to 4 hours of screen on time to 6 to 7 hours. Plus, it seems like I'm the only one who noticed the streamlining of the app closing animation. All in all, my XS Max is perfect now. Terrible battery life on SE. Honestly, it's going well for now. I'm using 8 Plus, battery lasts about 7 to 8 hours. I use iPhone XS Max and XS. Apps like Uber don't work properly anymore on all the iPhones I updated to 13.1.2. However, it seems to work fine on the phones which have not been updated or iPhone 6. Has anyone else faced problems with third-party apps? Notable Uber app after the update. That's usually because the apps have not been updated on their side, so hopefully they get them working properly. I do notice issues though. iPhone 7 Plus, and I have had no issues with the new update. Battery on my iPhone XS Max is bad, but on the iPad 2018 is terrible. Battery drain on the XS Max is terrible. I want to go back to 12.4. You can go back, but give it a few days normally. Very smooth, but still a lot of bugs to fix. And so as you can see, I'm just reading randomly from all of these different comments, and it varies greatly from device to device and person to person. You may be having a great experience while others are not. I would suggest going into your settings, going down to battery, and seeing what's actually causing that drain. Because if you go through and see what's using your battery, chances are there's something like Facebook, for example, that is really crushing your battery and really making it terrible, because that seems to be the number one problem. So I would just see if you can figure out what the app is and then stop allowing it to use location services and things like that. I'll link my battery video that I did on how to optimize that in the description below and above as well. If you have any other comments or questions, though, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you made it this far through the video, I really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell if you'd like to see more of these videos as soon as they're released. Of course, I'll link the wallpaper in the description as I always do. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.